Have you ever wondered why, years after a big financial crash, things still don't feel quite right? Why your parents might still talk about the 2008 crisis like it was yesterday? It's because financial crises aren't just a blip on the radar. They're more like economic earthquakes, and the aftershocks can be felt for a decade or even longer. Today we're diving deep into the long-lasting scars these crises leave on our economy and our lives. Let's start with the most obvious impact: jobs. When a crisis hits, companies panic. They stop hiring and they start laying people off. This isn't just a temporary setback. Think about it. A recent graduate in 2008 entered one of the worst job markets in modern history. They might have had to take a low-paying job unrelated to their degree just to get by. This initial bad start can have a ripple effect throughout their entire career. Studies show that graduating into a recession can lower your earnings for at least 10 to 15 years. You're constantly playing catch-up, and that early stumble makes it harder to get promotions, negotiate raises, and build wealth. It's a phenomenon economists call scarring. The economy might eventually recover, but for that generation, the financial scars remain. And it's not just the new graduates. Experienced workers who lose their jobs during a crisis often struggle to find a new position with the same pay and status. They might have to switch industries, accept a pay cut, or dip into their retirement savings just to stay afloat. This erodes a lifetime of hard-earned financial security. So while the stock market might bounce back, millions of households are left dealing with the financial wreckage for years to come. Next, let's talk about debt. Financial crises are often fueled by too much debt, and ironically, they leave behind even more of it. When a crisis hits, governments have to step in. They spend massive amounts of money to bail out banks, support failing industries, and provide unemployment benefits. Think of the trillions spent during the 2008 crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. This money doesn't appear out of thin air. It's borrowed, which means national debt skyrockets. So what's the big deal about high national debt? Well, it means that for years, or even decades, a larger chunk of your tax money has to go towards paying interest on that debt, instead of being invested in things like schools, hospitals, roads, or scientific research. It can lead to austerity measures, government spending cuts, which can slow down economic growth even further. For individuals, the story is similar. People who lost jobs or income during a crisis often rack up credit card debt or take out loans to survive. This personal debt hangs over them, making it harder to save, invest, or make big purchases like a house, which further slows down the economy. This leads us to another critical point: trust. A healthy economy runs on trust. You trust that the bank will keep your money safe. You trust that your investments won't vanish overnight. You trust that the system is more or less fair. Financial crises shatter this trust. After 2008, people became incredibly wary of the stock market and the entire banking system. They saw big banks get bailed out while ordinary people lost their homes. This created a deep sense of cynicism and risk aversion. When people don't trust the system, they change their behavior. They might pull their money out of the stock market and put it into less productive assets, like cash under the mattress, which doesn't help the economy grow. They become hesitant to take out loans for a new business or a home, even if they can afford it. This widespread fear and caution create what's called a liquidity trap, where even with low interest rates, people and businesses are too scared to borrow and spend. The engine of the economy sputters because the fuel of trust is gone. Rebuilding that trust is a slow, painstaking process that can take a generation. The long shadow of a crisis also changes the very structure of our economy. Industries are reshaped. Some, like construction during the housing bust, might shrink permanently. Others, like the tech sector, might accelerate as the economy looks for new sources of growth. This shift creates winners and losers. If you were a skilled construction worker in 2007, your skills might suddenly be less in demand. You're forced to retrain or find work in a completely different field, which is a difficult and costly process. This restructuring also fuels inequality. During a crisis, asset prices like stocks and real estate plummet. Wealthy individuals and corporations with cash on hand can swoop in and buy these assets at bargain bin prices. When the market eventually recovers, their wealth multiplies, while those who were forced to sell at the bottom get left behind. This is a primary reason why the gap between the rich and the poor often widens dramatically in the aftermath of a financial crisis. The recovery isn't felt equally by everyone. For many, it feels like they're falling further and further behind. Finally, there's the psychological impact. Living through a period of intense financial uncertainty is stressful. It affects mental health, relationships, and people's overall outlook on life. The constant worry about job security, debt, and the future creates a cloud of anxiety that doesn't just disappear when the news headlines change. This can lead to a more risk-averse population, one that's less likely to start a business, make a bold career move, or invest in the future. People start to play it safe. This collective psychological shift can create a feedback loop, leading to slower innovation and less dynamic economic growth for years. So when we look at a financial crisis, we can't just look at the stock market charts. We have to look at the human cost, the lost careers, the mountain of debt, the broken trust, and the deep-seated inequality it leaves behind. These aren't temporary problems. They are deep structural wounds that shape our economic landscape for decades. Understanding these long-term effects is crucial, not just for economists, but for all of us, because it helps us see why preventing the next crisis is so incredibly important. The decisions made in the halls of power today will determine whether future generations face the same long, difficult recovery. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Let me know in the comments what other economic topics you'd like us to explore. See you next time.